हाँ ठीक है शुरू करें तैयार है अच्छा ठीक है चलो Hello, I'm Ravi Visvesvaraya Sharada Prasad. The chorus of sycophants in the Congress party pleading with Priyanka Gandhi to take over as the president of the Congress party made me recall what Indira Gandhi is said to have predicted about her granddaughter Priyanka Gandhi. The late Makhanlal Fotedar, in his memoirs titled Chinar Leaves, Makhanlal Fotedar had stated that Indira Gandhi had told him about her granddaughter, Priyanka Gandhi, a few days before her assassination on 31st October 1984. So, you will live to see her grow and shine on the national horizon. People will see me in her and remember me when they see her. She will shine and the next century will be hers. Then people will forget me. So this is what the late Makhanlal Fotedar had stated that Indira Gandhi had told him about her granddaughter Priyanka Gandhi. And the revelations by Makhanlal Fotedar in his book Chinar Leaves that Indira Gandhi had a portent of her impending violent death are correct. That she had gone on a quick private visit to Kashmir in late October 1984 to see a grove of chinar trees, and she came back convinced that her violent death was near. And Indira Gandhi had told my father, H.Y. Sharada Prasad, who was her information advisor, and her principal secretary, P.C. Alexander, just after she returned from Kashmir in late October 1984, that she expected her violent end in a few days' time. And P.C. Alexander has also written about this in his book. And Indira Gandhi had told my father, H.Y. Sharada Prasad, who was her trusted confidant, that when she was a very young girl, one scholar, a pandit, used to come to their house in Allahabad to give her lessons. And this young girl, Indira Gandhi, asked this pandit, the whole city is terrified of my grandfather. Her grandfather, Motilal Nehru, who was a very formidable figure. And Indira Gandhi went on to ask her Pandit tutor, but you are not scared of him at all, and you talk to him like an equal. But you are so scared of my mother, who is so gentle and so kind and so mild. And the Pandit tutor replied to the very young Indira Gandhi, Beti, your mother was a revered saint in her previous life, and she was famous for her kind and noble deeds. But she committed some minor transgressions, so she has been sent back to earth. A curse was put on her that she will suffer a lot and she will die young, but she will go straight to heaven and attain moksha, eternal salvation. So this, what her Pandit tutor told Indira Gandhi, had a very profound effect on this very, very young girl for the rest of her life. And this is what Indira Gandhi told my father. And then I recall my father, H.Y. Sharada Prasad, telling Inder Malhotra, when Inder Malhotra was writing his book on the political dynasties of South Asia, and that when Motilal Nehru was searching for a bride for his son Jawaharlal Nehru, and Motilal Nehru was keen on Kamala Kaul, then Motilal Nehru's astrologer predicted to him about Kamala Kaul that at least one member of each generation of Kamala Kaul's direct descendants will get to be ruler of India. And then this astrologer's prediction continued. But each of her direct descendants who gets to be ruler of India will die a violent death. And that there might be more violent deaths too in each generation of Kamala Kaul's direct descendants. And that each of the direct descendants who gets to be ruler of India will also experience periods when they are overthrown and they're out of power. And the prophecy continued. They will have spectacular victories and abysmal defeats. They will have the highest highs and the lowest lows. They will be adored by the public and they will be detested by the public. And then this prophecy went on that there is a grove of chinar trees in a remote location of Kashmir. And as long as that particular grove of chinar trees is in existence, at least one member of each generation of Kamala Kaul's direct descendants will get to be the ruler of India. And that each chinar tree in that particular grove represents a ruler of India. And whenever a chinar tree in that grove wilts or shrivels, then the descendant who had been the ruler of India will die a violent death soon. And then this astrological prophecy went on that Kamala Kaul will suffer a lot and she will die young after a lot of pain, and that in her previous life she was a pious saint who had committed some minor transgressions, and so she was sent back to earth, and that the lives of her direct descendants will be a mixture of great glory, fame, and power because of her noble deeds, as well as horrifying tragedies as punishment and as a curse for her minor transgressions. So this is what my father H.Y. Sharada Prasad had told Indira Malhotra when Indira Malhotra was researching his book on the political dynasties of South Asia. And this astrological prediction has also been confirmed by Popul Jayakar in verbal conversations. And so far, this astrological prophecy has come true of being a ruler of India, losing power, and then dying a violent, bloody death. So, if you look at Kamala Kaul's daughter, Indira Gandhi, she became Prime Minister in January 1966. She lost power in March 1977. She regained power in January 1980. And she was assassinated on 31st October 1984. And Indira Gandhi's younger son, Sanjay Gandhi, he was the de facto ruler of India during the emergency in 1975. Sanjay Gandhi too lost power in March 1977. He regained power in January 1980. And Sanjay Gandhi was killed in a plane crash in June 1980. And then if you go to Indira Gandhi's elder son, Rajiv Gandhi, he became the Prime Minister in December 1984, lost power in November 1989, and Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated in May 1991. Now, I don't think really that Jawaharlal Nehru, with his rational, scientific temper, really believed in this prophecy. And actually, contrary to public opinion, Jawaharlal Nehru did not actively push Indira Gandhi into politics, and as I've explained in detail in my previous video interviews. But it is hard to say whether Motilal Nehru believed in this prophecy, but Motilal Nehru certainly pushed the political career of his son Jawaharlal Nehru. So, according to this astrological prophecy, it really should be named the Kamala Kaul dynasty rather than be named the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty, because the prophecy was that at least one, if not more, of each generation of Kamala Kaul's direct descendants would get to become the ruler of India and then die a violent, bloody death. And Motilal Nehru, he doted, absolutely adored his daughter-in-law Kamala Kaul, and Motilal Nehru lavished care and affection on her, even though his two daughters were very, very nasty to Kamala Nehru. And Motilal Nehru certainly promoted the political future of his son Jawaharlal. In fact, it was actually the idealistic Jawaharlal Nehru who had brought his very westernized father, Motilal Nehru, into the freedom struggle. But Motilal Nehru became the president of the Congress Party in 1919, and he was a major financial contributor to the Congress Party. But then there were serious political differences between the father and son during the 1920s, mainly over the dominion status of India versus the Purna Swaraj. And Motilal Nehru even left the Congress Party and he founded the Swaraj Party in 1923. But then Motilal Nehru again rejoined the Congress, and Motilal became the president of the Congress Party again for a second time in 1928. And again, in spite of their political differences, mainly over dominion status versus Purna Swaraj, Motilal Nehru was instrumental in making his son Jawaharlal Nehru the president of the Congress Party in 1929 at Lahore, when Jawaharlal was 40 years old. And this was even though most of the delegates were in favor of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. But Mahatma Gandhi too strongly backed Jawaharlal. And in fact, Mahatma Gandhi had remarked on Motilal's love for his son. But as I said earlier in my previous video interviews, there really is no convincing evidence at all that Jawaharlal Nehru groomed Indira Gandhi to succeed him as the Prime Minister, contrary to the popular perceptions today. And again, in previous video interviews, please search my YouTube channel. So I had described how in 1952, Jawaharlal Nehru had wanted JP, Loknayak Jayaprakash Narayan. So Jawaharlal Nehru had wanted JP to succeed him as Prime Minister. And then again, I had described in detail in previous video interviews how Jawaharlal Nehru was deeply disappointed by JP's repeated rebuffs of his invitations in 1952, 1953 to join his Nehru's cabinet as Deputy Prime Minister and to be groomed as Nehru's successor. And again, in previous video interviews, please search on my YouTube channel, I had described how Govind Ballapant and UN Dhebad had utilized this excuse of Jayaprakash Narayan's reluctance to assist Jawaharlal Nehru, and GB Pant and UN Dhebad utilized this to push their right-wing, conservative, anti-socialist policies by influencing Indira Gandhi and by operating through Indira Gandhi as a pliant facade. and Govind Ballabh Pant and UN Debar, they repeatedly told Indira Gandhi that there was no one else that Nehru could rely on, and that it was Indira Gandhi's duty to assist her father, because everyone else would let Nehru down, just as JP and Acharya JP Kripalani had let Nehru down when Nehru had asked for their assistance. So maybe, probably this was the beginning of Indira Gandhi's thinking about starting a dynasty that Govind Ballabh Pant and UN Debar had brainwashed her that the only persons that one could rely on in politics was one's own relatives. And maybe this brainwashing by UN Debar and Govind Ballabh Pant was probably why Indira Gandhi encouraged her second son, Sanjay Gandhi, from about 1973 onwards. And then again, after Sanjay Gandhi's demise in a plane crash in June 1980, she brought her very reluctant elder son, Rajiv Gandhi, into politics. But again, to return to the premonition that Indira Gandhi had, she certainly had this premonition and a foreboding that ordering the attack on the Golden Temple in June 1984 would lead to her assassination. And in fact, Indira Gandhi had a very detailed discussion with Michael Foot a few weeks before Operation Blue Star. And my father, H.Y. Sharada Prasad, was also present at this meeting. Now, Michael Foot had long regarded Jawaharlal Nehru as a father figure, and Michael Foot had arrogated to himself the role of being Indira Gandhi's wise elder brother. And Michael Foot often spoke harsh, brutal truths to her, and Michael Foot frequently gave her unsolicited advice, which Indira Gandhi did not always kindly take to. But then Indira Gandhi knew that Michael Foot always had her very best interests at heart. And then Michael Foot and my father also had become very close friends by then, in spite of the age gap between them. So Indira Gandhi told Michael Foot, this was some weeks before Operation Blue Star. So she told Michael Foot that she was left with no option but to except to send in the army to attack the Golden Temple. And Michael Foot told her, "You do realize that you are signing your own death warrant, don't you?" And my father, H.Y. Sharada Prasad, also was present at this meeting. And then Indira Gandhi replied, "Yes, I know that I will be killed, but this is something which I absolutely have to do." And Michael Foot told her, "And this is what your father would have wanted you to do." And then Michael Foot reminded Indira Gandhi of the very exact words which Jawaharlal Nehru had told Indira Gandhi: "Be brave, and all the rest follows. If you are brave, you will not fear, and you will not do anything of which you are ashamed." And then Michael Foot sent Indira Gandhi a note a little later saying, "Giving in to the demands of the Sikh extremists would achieve what neither Pakistan and insidious American policy nor Chinese pressure combined together have been able to achieve: the destruction of the inheritance your father has left you, a united India dedicated to the proposition that religious fanaticism is the most evil of all enemies." And then Michael Foot went on in this note to Indira Gandhi It was the unity of India, apart even more from the love of his own original homeland, which made Nehru risk defeats and humiliations for the sake of Kashmir. And then Foot went on to remind Indira Gandhi that the unity of India was the title of the booklet which Nehru wrote at the height of the wartime crisis that India had with Britain. And again, about her premonition, Indira Gandhi, if you go back to her will, Indira Gandhi had mentioned in her will, if I die a violent death, as some fear and a few are plotting, I know that the violence will be in the thought and the action of the assassins, not in my dying. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, Indira Gandhi made a private visit to Kashmir in late October 1984, with her destination and itinerary kept totally secret, and she came back convinced that her violent death was near. And she had grown to see that grove of chinar trees, which is in a remote, secret location of Kashmir. And then Makhanlal Fotedar had accompanied her part of the way, and on her way back, she spoke to ML Fotedar about Priyanka. You will live to see her grow and shine on the national horizon. People will see me in her and remember me when they see her. She will shine and the next century will be hers. Then people will forget me. And then, of course, there's Indira Gandhi's very famous last speech in Odisha, the day before she was assassinated, when she very dramatically declared that when she was assassinated, every drop of her blood would invigorate the nation. And the intelligence agencies had for weeks they had wanted to remove all the Sikhs from her bodyguard duties, but Indira Gandhi had overruled the intelligence agencies in writing, and she wrote on the file, India is a secular country. And Indira Gandhi had even told a senior intelligence official, pointing to Beyant Singh, as long as I have him, Beyant Singh, protecting me, I have nothing to fear about. And in fact, Indira Gandhi had told my father often, I want to die standing on my feet while I am in full possession of all my faculties, and I don't want to suffer for years and years like my father, Jawaharlal Nehru, had suffered during his last days, especially when Nehru had had a stroke and was incapacitated. अच्छा ठीक है, shall we finish है, यहाँ ख़त्म करें, यहाँ ठीक है, ख़त्म करें हैं, यहाँ ठीक है, ये ठीक निकला है, ठीक आया है, अच्छा ठीक है. Okay, so please subscribe to my YouTube and IGTV channels, and please follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. My Twitter account is @RVP. @RVP is my Twitter account. On my YouTube channel, I will be uploading several more videos about politics, current affairs, technology, business, industry, and the economy. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel. This is Ravi Visvesvaraya, Sharada Prasad saying goodbye. Have a wonderful day. ठीक है, बंद करें, 24 मिनट हो गया, बंद करें, अच्छा ठीक है, चलो ठीक है, थैंक यू, ओके सी यू, ओके सी यू, ठीक है.